This is going to cover lesson 59 from your textbook. I know you don't have your textbook because I just gave you handouts so I could keep your book one more week, but it is lesson 59, which is the copies of the first section of your handout that I gave you. All right, so just like before, we're going to be given a system of equations. They're connected with that little squiggly parenthesis there because we know they go together. And this whole time what we've been doing is we've been solving for the point at which these two lines intersect. So today what we're going to do is we are going to do the same thing, but we are going to do it via graphing or by graphing these two things. And I'll be real honest, and you're going to see in just a second why I hate this method. If you have a calculator that you can type these lines in, the kind of expensive fancy ones, then you can type them in and get an exact point. But because we're going to be hand drawing these graphs, it might be hard to get an exact point. So we're going to just sort of estimate. That's my first reason for not liking these, or not liking doing it this way. You're fixing to see the second reason I don't like doing it this way. But it's one of the things that we have to know how to do. Later, unless you're specified to graph, substitute, or eliminate, you can pick whichever one you want. So the first thing I'm going to have to do is put each equation into y equals mx plus b form. Now, to do that, I'm going to have to rearrange these. So I'm going to move my negative or my 3x over. Understood plus becomes a minus. I'm going to move my 4 over. My minus 4 becomes a plus. And now because there's a negative 2 with the y, I need to, not a negative 2, it's a positive 2, I'm sorry. Divide every piece by 2. So when I simplify all of that, I end up right here. All right. Now I'm going to rearrange this equation into y equals form. So I'm going to move my understood plus x over. It's going to become minus. My plus 1 is going to become minus 1. Now because there's a 3 with that y, I have to divide everything by 3. And when that's simplified, I end up here. And this is the second reason I don't like graphing, because it's much more common. The more that we do this, the more often we're going to have fraction b's. We always need a fraction for our y, for our rise over run. But in this case, where we cross our y-axis is a fraction, and that gets a little bit difficult. So step 1, put every equation into y equals mx plus b form. Now I'm going to graph this one. I'm going to do it in red so we can see the difference. Remember, we always do our b first. So my first point is at 2, where it crosses the y-axis. From there, I'm going to go down 3. 1, 2, 3. I'm going down because it's negative. I'm going to run 2, and I always run right. There's my point. Now, my line is not exactly straight, which is why this is a little bit more difficult for me. Now, my b is negative 1/3. I'm going to just kind of estimate to be about right here. Okay? From there, I rise down 1. Again, I'm going down because it's negative. And over 1, 2, 3. And then I'm going to do my best to cross that right there. And obviously, I didn't quite touch that point because I can't draw a straight line. But now the point is to find the place at which these two lines intersect, which is right here. And that point, remember, it's always xy. So on my x-axis, I'm at 2. On my y-axis, I'm at negative 1. Now the problem is, when I'm hand drawing this, it's going to be hard to tell exactly where I put it. So the reality is, for your answers on these, if you'll just get it as close as you can to a whole number. I don't think any of your problems have fractions for the answers. So let me look real quick and double check that. Let's see. It looks like everything will be a whole number. So just estimate to your best that you can as to where those cross. Like I said, when you're having to do it by hand, it's a little bit hard, but let's do one more just for one more practice. So here's my given problem. 2x plus y minus 5 equals 0, x plus 3y minus 6 equals 0. If I had an option, I would multiply this bottom equation by -2 and use elimination. But because this lesson is all about graphing, we're going to do it the way they're asking us to do it. So what I've done is I've rearranged this. I'm going to move my 2x over, I'm going to move my 5 over, and I end up with -2x plus 5. On this bottom one, I'm going to move my understood x over. Understood 1x becomes -x. My -6 becomes 6x, and because there's a 3, I have to divide everything by 3, and I end up with -1/3 because there's an understood 1. Plus 2 because 6, my handwriting is terrible, divided by 3 is 2. All right, so step 1, put everything in y equals mx plus b form. Don't forget when you have a whole number with your y to divide everything by that. Now let's graph our first line. Our first line is going to cross the y-axis at 5. That's what our b represents. Now my rise over run is -2. It's a whole number. Remember, just put it over 1 to create a rise over run. It's negative, so I'm going to go down 2 over 1. We always run right. And I cannot draw a straight line. My second one we're going to cross the y-axis at 2. And it's negative also. So we're going to go down 1 over 1, 2, 3. And there's my second point. And I am going to just estimate that to be crossing at, remember, xy. xy. Or xx, huh? xy. I'm going to estimate by looking at this that my x is at 2 and my y is at +1. And like I said, because you're hand drawing these, it's going to be a little bit difficult to see, well, that it's right there, but I'm going to estimate it. I'm going to put it to the closest point that I can get to be a whole number. All right? So that is the graphing form that I want you to try on this lesson. Well, I don't want you. Your textbook requires it. Every textbook requires it. Every state of Texas curriculum requires it. So we're going to do it. Your homework is from lesson 59. It's numbers 1 through 3. You don't have to do number 4 on the bottom of that page. We're going to actually do a whole lesson later this week on word problems using these methods. This lesson, it wants you to solve all of them by graphing, so just do your best. You should have this as the first section of your handout since I needed to keep your textbooks one more week.